Today is the 16th day of Av, the 20th of August. We're up to chapter 16. We're starting chapter 16 in Shoresh Mitzvahs Tefillah, in Derech Mitzvosecha. So we actually have to finish a tiny little bit from the last chapter. You said that here at the end there's a chul, at the end of chapter 15. It's interesting. We finished chapter 15 yesterday. Was the 15th of Av. Today we're starting 16th of Av. One time it works. It's like a broken clock. What?
Almost like Devere.
Yeah. Okay. So here we have at the end. He, as many times from the Tzemach Tzedek, these are some of it is his own analysis. Almost all of it is from the Alter Rebbe. Almost everything he says is from the Alter Rebbe, and not only is it from the Alter Rebbe, but it's word for word what the Alter Rebbe. No, even in what we've read, we just haven't seen it.
It's a lashon from the Alter.
It's a lashon from the Alter Rebbe. He connected in different ways, but so here they say that at the end of chapter 15 there was a blank space, so it was clear that he wanted to copy something more. He wanted to write something more. But he didn't, for some reason. But we have this exact language that he said before in chapter 15 in another place from the Alter Rebbe. And it's word for word, and so we can finish it off. Probably he wanted to copy the continuation. So here at the bottom they put the continuation. And they says like this, that we said yesterday that every person, when they say the first paragraph of Shema, they've gone up to the level of completely identifying with Hashem. And so now when they say the second paragraph, they say Venatati, I will bring rain down. So it's like because of that level that I've identified with Hashem completely, it's like I speak in His name. So the continuation is Uferush. So looking at the second, the end of the second line on the bottom, under the in the note. Uferush Venatati metarotzechem hu mad uman. So he says, really what we've done here is we've run and returned, which is another way of saying man, which is feminine waters, and return is the masculine waters. The feminine is always rising, and the masculine is always descending. That's how they play together. When I awaken to Hashem, that's called feminine waters. When Hashem awakens to me, or the response is called masculine waters. So this is, he says, so when a person davens and he goes through this whole cycle, first running to Hashem in the first paragraph and then coming back down in the second paragraph, that is mad uman. That's a masculine waters and feminine waters. כי כל התחלקות שיש בגן עדן כמה השגות ושאר עולמות לכל צדיק וכן מחנה מיכאל הכל תלוי בערך המד והמן. So he says any kind of spiritual success that a person has of understanding something, of comprehending something, is dependent on this process that he went through. Meaning he awakens, and the result is that he understands. And the result is the comprehension. Comprehension is feminine. So what? Right. It's the end. Right. Right. What you put in is what you get out, and this needs to be understood because a lot of people think that this is you're supposed to understand right away. You're supposed to understand things right away. Marriage is supposed to be easy at the beginning. All kinds of things that are the main tasks that we have in life demand a tremendous amount of effort. Tremendous. Velepum tzara agra. And based on how much you've toiled, how much you've even suffered, that's the reward that you receive. You can't receive reward. That's what's called matzati velo yagati. Right. What the sages say is matzati velo yagati al ta'amin. If a person finds, but he didn't expend any effort before, he shouldn't believe in what he finds. Meaning, if I have understanding of something beforehand, and some people just do. Some people have an innate understanding of things. So they start reading and they understand perfectly what's going on. Okay, so he has a beginning. You're right. He has a chush, as we call it. He has a sense about it. But that's not what he is here for. It just means that this is like a guiding light for him to say, this is where you should expend your effort.
The chush is a good thing.
It's a very good thing because it X marks the spot. It tells you where you need to expend your effort. Some people don't know what they're good at. They never find something like that, so you just have to work at it and figure out what works. But if you have a chush, it doesn't mean that you can now coast. It's not that you can now glide through it. It's all going to be easy. This is where you need to expend all your effort. And if you do, what you will receive is 100 times what you could have received without this extending of effort. וכל העניין הוא בחינת ג' שמות דויסע ויבוא ויית ישר הפוך ישר מלמעלה למטה ומלמטה למטה. So now we can go back to understand why the name of 72, we said it's 3 verses, each one has 3 subsequent verses, each one has 72 letters just before Kriyas Hayam, just before the parting of the Red Sea. One we take the letters from in regular order, beginning to end. The middle verse we take it from the end to the beginning, and then the final verse from the beginning to the end again. So what do we have here? This way, that way, this way. Now let's translate it into up and down. So in the first verse we're going up. In the second verse we're coming down, and in the third verse we're going back up. What's this third verse going back up? We heard now about going up and coming down. What's the third? It says that the whole point of after you complete a cycle is that you're supposed to elevate reality. No, you come back down the second time. You come back down. Why do you come back down? Because it's to change reality and then to lift it. So the way that I've usually seen this explained is that this is in a relationship between a man and a wife. He rises. What does he rise for? Sorry, that's the feminine waters. She rises, as it were, to bring him down. But then his duty is to lift both of them back up. So let's say it again. She rises. That's feminine waters. Feminine waters is always from below to above. So the woman has some kind of awakening. She has to have some kind of awakening. What's the awakening? It could be many things. But then, why does she awaken? It's because she wants to tempt. It's almost seduce. It's not a bad word. Seducing people to come down into reality. They're too detached. So we call it to seduce.
Who's too detached?
The male is detached.
The male is too detached.
He's in his world.
Okay. Yes,
so she does something. So usually when you're talking about marriage, so she dresses a certain way. She says something. She tries to awaken in Egypt. It was that she got them to look together in a mirror.
Right.
She finds something to awaken his interest.
Yes.
So she rises to bring him back down. But then once he's back down, it's his duty to lift both of them up together. Now it becomes his role. Okay, so there's a lot to be said about this, but this is how reality, all of life works this way. Meaning that reality seduces us to come down. That's why our soul came down in the first place. Now I'm down here. What am I doing here? Okay, now that I'm down here, I have to lift all of reality back up. Okay, so it's up and down and up again. So it's not up and away, it's up, down and away. Up, down, up and away. Okay. ומעתה יובן, so now we're starting chapter 16. ומעתה יובן מה שהתחלנו לבאר לעיל, אות י"א איך שבקריאת שמע ממשיכים מהערה ממקור הדקולה, היינו מאור אין סוף ממש, אלא שהערה זו נמשכת מתלבשת בחוכמה תחילה ונקרא ייחוד אבא ואמא. וזהו בחינת אליו ולא למידותיו. So it's just recapping. He's saying in chapter 11, we saw that all of this is what we call bringing down new light from the source of everything, from the infinite revelation of Hashem. And this is what the sages meant in the Medrash when they said that you have to daven to him and not to his measures, and not to his sfirot. והמשכה זו נמשכת על ידי בחינת אהבת דמאודיך, שזה דווקא הוא בחינת העלאת מן לעורר המשכת אור אינסוף ברוך הוא. And this is done through the instrument of the infinite love, the love that breaks the barriers, called meodecha, with all of your might, with all of your more. That is what awakens, this is our awakening of from below. This is our feminine waters. Ahavat meodecha, the love that is beyond all limits, that breaks all the limits, love for God, in order to bring down this source of everything. And this is all explained, he says, in the final section of the Tanya. We're not going to get into where it is there. He explains it there. And this is what he says there. And there he explains it like this. כדי להמשיך אור אינסוף ברוך הוא למטה, אי אפשר בלי העלאת מן מלמטה דווקא. In order to bring down light from the infinite, you can't do that without an awakening from below. That's called feminine waters. העלאת מן, raising feminine waters. והעלאת מן במוחו וליבו של אדם הוא בחינת רשפי אש בלי גבול, ונקרא מאודיך. And this raising of feminine waters in the mind and in the heart of a person is called the sparks of fire that have no end. Rishfei esh bli gvul. And this is what's called meodecha, with all of your might. Kedei leorer b'chinat ensof. This is in order to awaken, to seduce is a word. That's the word we use it for, and I don't take it back. That's the word that the sages use. To seduce the infinite to come down. To tell him there's a reason to come down. V'hainu al yedei gvurot desag. Shehen hen harapach nitzotzin ad kan leshono. Now he puts it together and he says, this is in the Tanya. He says that you get the strength of lifting yourself with this mighty love through the clarifications, the birurim that you've done the day before. You've done birurim, you've lived in the world, you've elevated things. When you elevate them, the spark in them is released. That spark is what we call rishfei esh. Those are sparks of fire. It's an image, obviously, but that's the idea. And when the spark of fire is released, you can ride it going up. It's like you use these sparks to go up. That's why people love looking at a bonfire. You love seeing the sparks flying up. They probably have a beautiful name for it in English. I don't know what it's called. But all these... in Hebrew, it's reshafim. It's like what comes off of when you do in a mill in a metal working. The sparks that fly off the. Ad kan leshono. That's what he says there. הנה מבואר מדבריו שעיקר העלאת מן הוא מבחינת מאודיך וילכך כשצריכים להמשיך האור ממש בגלוי בביע וידוע שכשצריך להיות ההמשכה למטה מטה מוכרח להיות המשכה ממקום היותר גבוה כידוע מעניין אני ולא מלאך וכולו. So he says, so from here we learned that in order to bring new light down, like we said, this is new revelation of Hashem that wasn't here when Hashem created the world. It wasn't here. How can I add something that wasn't here? Because I'm telling Hashem, look, here's the work that I've done. Now what do you have to add on? It's like playing poker. So I'm putting you down for 100. What are you putting down now? I did this. Now what are you willing to do in exchange? So you have to do your work, and then Hashem does His. And even though davening is everywhere called the life of the moment, davening is living for the moment. It's not living for eternity. There's work that connects to eternity. There's work that connects for the moment. Learning Torah is called working for eternity. But meaning that a person is building his eternity when he learns Torah. But when he's praying, he's not going to have these prayers when he comes to heaven in the afterlife. They don't last. The whole point of prayer is here, that I want Hashem to do something here. So since I want Hashem to do something here, it's called the work of the moment. It's something that is for this moment, for this lifetime. So now you're telling me that this type of work can now access that which is beyond everything? How can that be? How can that be? I would think that only something that's eternal could touch the eternal. How is it that I do something that's for the moment? I'm just asking for what I need. And you're telling me this awakens Hashem to bring something new down? How is that possible? משום שהרע שבביאה הוא מבחינת מלכות דאצילות מקור הזמן. אבל מכל מקום, שורש הגילוי מאור אין סוף ממש. So he says the reason that we call it the life of the moment prayer is because from our vantage point, where prayer is coming from is what we call malchut de'atzilut, is the lowest part of the world of emanation. And that's the origin of time. What he means to say is that our prayers are linked to time. That's why prayer is the main mitzvah that follows time. And it just not just time in the sense of every day that we have 3 prayers and then we have Kriyas Shema Lamita, and then it's not that there's different slots of time in the day, but each day is different, right? We have different prayers for every single day, and then for special days, holidays and so on, they're completely different. So prayer is linked to time. The Malchus of Atzilus, the end of the world of emanation, is called the beginning of time. That's what it's known as. Why? Because there we say Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Imloch. It's the Malchus that brings out time. Why? Because Hashem was king, He is king, He will be king. What do you want? If He's eternal, why do I need to say He was? Why do I need to say He will be? Why do I need to say He is? It says, yes, He's also eternal. But when you're talking about the consciousness of people that live in our reality, our consciousness is time-bound. So for us, we have to say, He was the king, He is the king, He will be the king. So that's for us. So when we address Him in prayer, we're linked to that. We're still linked to that. But it's only where our starting point is, he says. Because through the prayer, through this feminine waters, prayer is all feminine waters. It's me rising thanks to the work that I did yesterday. Then I bring down from the source which is above time. So the work itself that I'm doing is time-bound, because that's how the prayer is built. But what it's accessing is beyond time. So it's called the life of the moment, but it's also accessing the eternal. שממנו נמשך כל אור חדש, from which comes every new revelation כידוע. וכמבואר גם כן במקום אחר, שכל המשכות אור חדש צריך להיות מעצמות המאציל דייקה. And as explained elsewhere, he says, every new type of revelation in the world, every new revelation of God. New revelation means this was not here ever from the creation of the world. This is a new revelation. Meaning, I said this, when it comes to doing something wrong, Rosh Steindl used to tell us this all the time. Nobody's been able to invent a new sin. All the sins are old. People who think they're inventing something new, he says, this has been done through time immemorial. You can't invent it. When it comes to doing something good, to revealing Hashem, there you can have a new revelation. Because that comes from the etzem, from Hashem himself. Okay, so we'll end here today.